Hello everyone and welcome to the next instalment of the Trusted Tech Talks podcast series. I'm Lloyd Lowson, your host, and I'm joined today by Tolly from Cinch. So we'll be discussing all things sort of DevOps today and why software developers should be getting more involved in the ops and the DevOps side. So I guess, Tolly, do you want to introduce yourself for people that don't know who you are?
Yeah, thanks Lloyd. Thanks for having me. I'm Tolly, as you said. I'm a principal practice engineer at Cinch, focused on everything to do with DevOps and observability. Cinch is pretty new in the market. It's just been around for about a year or two, and it's providing car buying platform, second-hand car buying platform, and we're growing pretty rapidly. So yeah, really looking forward to this chat.
Nice. All right, great. Well, I'll kick things off then. I know I've got a couple of questions to sort of fire at you. So I guess a big question at the moment, and obviously we see a lot of companies going down this way as well, is kind of getting, the traditional DevOps people have come from more operational backgrounds, and obviously at Cinch you're going down the software developers are picking up the operation side. So I guess firstly, why should, I guess, or why is that the way forward for software engineers to sort of pick up the more ops side and get involved in more DevOps stuff?
Well, I guess it's a great question. I guess to start with, Cinch started with DevOps first from the very kind of inception of the company. So we didn't have to do any massive transformations, which made it easier for us. But a bit more specifically, I guess, we need to your question about why software engineers should get involved with DevOps. I think kind of need to look back at where DevOps started and where it is now. So around about when it first started, around about 2010, I might be wrong about that, but when the first kind of DevOps days were organized and the term DevOps was coined.
Yeah.
At the time, it was a revolutionary organizational approach to software development. And it was probably the biggest one after the Agile Manifesto. And so there was a lot of hype that was created in the next few years around it, and a lot of organizations, but usually startups, started adopting the various DevOps organizational models, which meant that essentially they were bringing the dev teams and the ops teams closer, at least, or turning the dev teams into ops at best. But that was always a bit of a hip movement that felt right in years, that everyone liked it. All the devs kind of thought, oh, that's a good idea. But in 2018, I think it was 2018, the Door research that had started around 2014, performing qualitative research across a number of organizations, actually proved that there's a correlation between organizational DevOps maturity and organizational performance. So this is almost like the real turning point, as we had proof as an industry that hip movements do make organizations profitable. So this meant that all organizations, to be able to keep up, should transform their organizational topologies and their ways of working, tooling, and ultimately mindset. And that has a big impact on roles. So engineering teams know they should be able to provision engineering teams should be able to provision infrastructure, build robust, quick pipelines, deploy to production, and observe and monitor their production systems. But that doesn't come easy. It doesn't, it's not easy to do. Engineers need to learn a lot more than designing their code, writing it, and regression testing it. They'll need to learn how to package up their code, how to deploy it, how to make their code in production observable. And the other big revolution is the cloud. So they need to do this in the cloud, which introduces a whole new set of challenges. So all this takes time, and it does add cognitive overhead. However, I'd say that it's welcoming overhead, as it means that software engineers within their teams have full control of the software lifecycle. They're closer to the customer. They can build. They're close to the customer. They can build efficient, short feedback loops between what they write and people using their software. So to me, that's something very exciting. I guess my answer, my TLDR is get involved in organizations that have a DevOps mindset, a true DevOps mindset, because it's exciting. You get ownership. You get you get to do what you always wanted to do.
Nice. I guess for sort of software engineers out there that that I'm a bit unsure about getting into it or being more involved in it, because there's quite a lot, as you probably know, there's a lot of software developers that just want to do that, obviously the development and the coding, and they don't necessarily want to pick it up. Do you think they just don't see the benefits, or is it just kind of that's what they want to do?
That's an interesting question. I think to an extent, you're always limited by the environment within which you operate. So to not talk about everyone else, but maybe bring my personal experience, is that I for years wrote code, wrote some tests, not that many, and then ended up and then delivered my code to source control, and that's it. I didn't really know what happened when it came to building it, shipping it. All of that was just obscured, and I didn't have visibility of it. So for years I was quite happy learning that, and it was a steep learning curve for me because I started from maths and physics. I hadn't written code till I started my first software job. So I think to an extent it's just, I think a lot of organizations maybe keep this detail away from developers, and if you find yourself in an organization that doesn't and follows a build it, ship it, support it model, where teams both build and ship their software, so they're allowed to deploy to production, but they also are responsible for operating it, and that's where you get insights into what extra things are involved in the software lifecycle. So I think it's all about how much you get exposed to. Having said that, I think that DevOps, based on what I was saying earlier about the DORA research and DevOps maturity being a predictor of organizational performance, DevOps is here to stay. It's been here for a long time, but it's even more relevant now.
Yeah. You're starting to see a lot of companies where, you know, they was just looking for that traditional sort of ops person to come in to sort of be that bridge between the teams, and then a lot of companies now realizing this, you know, it's not probably the right way. So yeah, we're seeing more and more companies out there transitioning into either looking for a software developer that's got that exposure and experience, or kind of someone who's been in that DevOps role but come from more of a software development background as well.
Yeah, and I take it even further that organizations that deliver and operate software, as I said, but using build it, ship it, support it model, which what that means is they have no centralized ops functions because they think it's better. They will be delivering in small batches of code to production, often every day. We do kind of deployments to production every day that you often hear, and they will make sure they do this with loads of automated testing in place so that they can truly practice CI/CD or trunk-based development ideally. And they'll do this without change approval boards or CABs, as people might know them, or Friday deploys, slogans, and things like that. But that doesn't come alone. It doesn't come with, I'll hire an infrastructure person and I'll do this. It comes with hiring in the mindset or the willingness, the drive to change. So it does require maturity and some capabilities. So things that I can think of is trunk-based development, psychological safety, monitoring observability, work and process limits, all this stuff that are kind of also from extreme programming and agile. A growing learning culture is very important, and advanced automated testing strategies, ultimately CI/CD. So all these things need to be established to be able to operate in that way. But I'd also argue that the future is here. In 2021, I believe that the maturity of DevOps across organization, and sorry, I believe that with the maturity of DevOps across organizations, the cloud and serverless in particular, we're experiencing a transition into a post DevOps era, if you like. Yeah. So if you read through the latest State of DevOps report, which came out September 2021, it's not sufficient anymore to be a mature DevOps organization. In 2018, if you were elite, it was about 7% of the organizations. In 2021, if you're elite, it's about 26%. So you're not special anymore, if you like. So the thing that is a differentiator that they do point out in the report, which we're seeing as well, is that is a fifth metric aside of the 4 metrics that they've used previously, which is measuring reliability. So yeah. Are we delivering software that's reliable for our customers and for our users? That's the big question. So I think candidates who are looking to go into organizations, they benefit from moving into organizations that really care about the 4 DORA metrics, but also about reliability and how to achieve that. And that comes with a few things as well, extra cognitive overhead.
Nice. It's definitely the kind of future then, I guess, in the direction of DevOps and the way it's matured. I guess for people that don't know out there and don't know much about cinch, as obviously on the technical side, how I know you've touched on a few points there already, but how are you doing this at cinch and promoting that sort of DevOps culture across the teams and the squads?
Yeah, that's a good question. To start with, I guess I was number one hire in terms of when we started building the engineering function at cinch, and I was hired as a DevOps subject matter expert, if you like. So I was basically a software engineer who was interested in DevOps. I didn't know that much, but I was keen to learn, and that kind of says a lot about cinch as an organization and what they wanted to achieve from day one. And since then we've scaled that. So what we do, it's a number of things. I guess the first thing I'd say is we chose to take advantage of the so-called inverse Conway's law maneuver. What that meant, so Conway's law is, yeah, a lot of people reference it, and essentially Conway said a few decades ago that your software, well, in loose terms, your software will ultimately mirror the structure of your organization. So how organization structured matter. So we intentionally try to structure our organization and design it in ways that allow us to promote teams to deliver software autonomously and take ownership of the building, shipping, and supporting that I talked about earlier. So that's number one, I'd say. An additional aspect is we have no QAs or no ops people. So I often say to teams, no one will look after your software. It's just you. So that gives a level of accountability, and it does force the issue a bit. So the teams do choose the techniques that help them deliver and operate efficiently. That may mean to be as CI/CD as possible. That may mean observability-driven development. So this is all the teams doing it, and that's the important bit. Quick pipelines, minimal and efficient infrastructure as code, and we also express that in the same programming language that we use across the stacks. So we have TypeScript across infrastructure backend and front end, and then more performance things like monitoring and SRE techniques, so chaos days and SLOs, or continuously improving incident process, and just general psychological safety. So my answer to what we're doing is a bunch of things, I guess, but we also support the teams. We don't kind of say, right, we're not giving you any ops people, we're not giving you any QAs, but you're alone. It's not like that. We try to, we have some software engineers, special software engineers, if you like, that are subject matter experts in all the stuff that help enhance our kind of DevOps mindset, which is infrastructure, pipelines, observability, SRE. And these software engineers are embedded in each team, but they understand the entire software lifecycle. We expect all software engineers to do that, but these software engineers are they understand a bit more the pains and toil of delivering and operating software. So they provide solutions, insights, ideas. So they're not there to do all the work as a form of a DevOps anti-pattern. They're not the DevOps engineers, if you like. We call them automation engineers, probably not a great title for them, but they try to automate everything to provide confidence to the team, to deliver software in a CI/CD fashion, and have confidence that their code is working in production after a change or at any point in time, really. So they are ultimately passionate about DevOps and observability, reliability, and they're usually people who are extra keen to learn so that they can advocate, coach, inspire their team so they can bring them along that DevOps journey. So you could say in a nutshell that we distributed the responsibility of establishing and promoting a DevOps culture.
Nice. Yeah, so I guess I know you touched on it when I spoke to you a few times as well, and I know you mentioned it there, but you kind of bring together the teams as well, don't you? How these automation engineers collaborate, as a team.
Yeah, that's a great shout. We that an extra level of support that we're trying to provide now is we're building community of practice, and the first community of practice was around DevOps and automation. So we brought all the automation engineers from all the teams into a group, into a psychologically safe place where they can share and get to know each other. And the purpose of it is that they become the kind of advocates for observability and monitoring and DevOps and everything to do with just learning and knowledge sharing. Just being that group that's subject matter expert and advocating for better DevOps, better observability practices, enabling all the engineers across Cinch to continuously improve. We've actually got a catch up in the office on Tuesday where we're going to go through a few things together. So it's not that they work independently from the teams; they use this community as a support almost. And we also have we've hired some principal engineers who's been quite key for us. It's quite useful to have engineers have been and seen a few things, and they're good mentors, good coaches, and they understand system thinking, and they have all these principles already, and they've seen it work elsewhere. So that's helped us a lot. And I guess the last thing that's helped us quite a bit is having one single platform for hosting, which is AWS and specifically serverless, but also having one go-to observability and monitoring platform, which is Datadog in our case. If you want to find out what's going on in our production systems or in our CI pipelines, you go to Datadog. So that's been really useful.
Nice. Okay, great. And I guess I'm just trying to have a quick think now in terms of we've covered quite a lot, really, haven't we?
Yeah, there's another thing I'd like to kind of mention, which I found really useful recently. Emily Freeman, who wrote the DevOps for Dummies. For anyone who's interested, I definitely kind of have a read of that book. I've just started reading it myself, but what prompted me to have a look at her book is she posted a video called Revolution in DevOps, and I'd recommend watching it. She addresses head-on the issues that have been created by how overloaded of a term DevOps is right now. You'd find it very interesting for sure in recruitment.
Yeah.
And all the various assumptions we make collectively as an industry about the kind of software delivery lifecycle. And it's interesting because she suggests that we should kind of rethink the delivery lifecycle a bit. And she goes about talking about the various concentric circles, I think, as she talks about them, which is every engineer will architect, develop, automate, deploy, or operate. But as a model, what I guess the outcome they want of their systems is they want it to be reliable, want to have security, they want it to be testable, scalability, observability, and flexibility. So this is kind of a bit more of a holistic way of looking at software. I think the thing that's most relevant to our conversation today is that she talks about personas being immutable. So despite someone being in different roles, potentially roles can change, but your persona remains the same. So if you're passionate about delivering software and understanding how customers are using your software and just making your day-to-day life a lot better and always improving, you always do that despite in whatever role you're in. So your work is not confined to a single set of skills. I think that was a really, really important point she makes, and I highly encourage people to have a watch.
So what book was that again? DevOps.
So it's DevOps for Dummies by Emily Freeman, and I think her video on YouTube is called Revolution in DevOps. She works for AWS now.
I'll put a link to that in the podcast for anyone else as well that wants to have a look. But yeah, no, that definitely interested in reading that myself. So it's Emily Freeman as well on YouTube. She's got YouTube.
Yeah, I think the video is called A Revolution in DevOps.
Revolution.
I think her model is called Revolutionary Software Development.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I'll put the links in the podcast as well when we put it out there. But yeah, no, that's kind of everything we wanted to cover today, I guess, Tolly, because I'm quite in depth on everything there. Obviously, the main part of it was, should software developers be picking up the operations side and why, and the reasons why and benefits why. So, covered everything there, and hope everyone's kind of took something away from that, the people that are listening as well. Hopefully it encourages, I guess, some more software engineers to actually take that leap and, get more involved in that side. And hopefully they've got a bit of an insight there into reasons why as well.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. It's a very, if I was able to describe how much is involved in software delivery and how interesting this space is, I'd take every chance. I think it's you'll learn a lot and you'll get exposed to a lot of different aspects of software delivery, and I'd encourage everyone to delve deep into it, because it'll make your life a lot better.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Trusted Tech Talks podcast with me, Lloyd Lowson, and my guest speaker, Tolly from Cinch. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube channels so you never miss another episode. If you want to discuss the topic further, have follow-up questions, or looking for a new cloud and DevOps role yourself, please get in touch with me via LinkedIn or email.